Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is Haley 2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. So this one's going to be describing the reasons behind a lot of my ideas. Why do we go with a new monetary policy? Why do we go with the competitive regulatory agencies? Why do we get rid of the public school system, or at least go into the free enterprise direction with a significant school choice program? Why do we go to a welfare system and get rid of the why do we get rid of the welfare system and go to a charity system? Why do we go to the private enterprise, police and law enforcement? Why do we go more free enterprise on the military? This one's going to give a lot of reasons why. So let's go through the system, and I got a lot of slides here to go through it. So hopefully I can get through it in about half an hour. Okay, the need for the new system. Got two slides there. Okay, regulations and bureaucracies are vital to society. There's a lot of people who are upset with bureaucracies because, quite frankly, they don't have a choice. They have to go with the one that they're under. Whatever jurisdiction you're under, you have one option, or you can move out of the governing jurisdiction, go to a different state, different city, hopefully not a whole another country, but too much has gone to the federal level right now. So we need a new system, but because there's a monopoly. So let's go with this. Government's monopoly control of these services stifles innovation and progress. You can make the claim that we have 50 different states, thus we have 50 different regulatory agencies. A lot more went to the federal government, pushing down consistent regulations and monopoly regulations across the board. But even within each state, there's a monopoly within that state. Yes, people can move, and sometimes they do. People move their businesses out of California or New York, go down to Florida, Arizona, Texas. There's a migration going on from state to state, but you have to leave your family, you have to leave your friends, you have to leave your community to do that, just to get different regulations. My idea is that you have a lot of different choices of governing agencies. We're going to call them competitive regulatory agencies, but they're governing agencies, and that's how you get representatives as well through the CRAs, competitive regulatory agencies. Let's go through. The government of these states and cities already compete. You just have to move. Kind of went over that. But there's a monopoly in each one. If you're in that jurisdiction, you have one. So if your family wants to stay together, they might want one set of labor law. You might want another set of labor law. Insurance policy, police policy. It's not a winner-take-all with elections. So there's the monopoly and anti-choice mentality we have in our government right now. What if every family got to pick which state's family law they wanted to live under? Just imagine for a minute. Let's say I, here in Virginia, got to choose Alaska's family law, North Carolina's, Tennessee's, whatever. And they got to govern me within the family law set of regulations. My neighbor got to pick North Dakota. My guy down the street got to pick Idaho. Everybody got to pick which state they wanted to. Then, what if those governed by that family law got to vote for the leadership? So everybody in the world, or not everybody in the country, got to pick which states, and then that state to govern that family law, you got to pick the leaders over that family law. When I say leaders, I mean top level elected leaders. What would happen? I could pick Idaho's. Let's say a lot of conservative-minded people picked Idaho. A lot of liberal-minded people picked California. A lot of libertarian people picked Maine. I don't know. I'm throwing out states and political philosophies and people with a political philosophy. There's a lot of different ones. But when you group together and then vote with like-minded people, you get a lot better result because there's competition to get people without having to move. So it's an interesting idea. So my idea is to have competitive governing agencies within each locality, within each state, then obviously within the federal government. On the family law leadership in the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, that's going back to voting. What if you got to vote just within the people that are governed by that state? That's basically what I'm talking about here. But instead of doing states like that, every state had roughly 12. You group together with like-minded people. 12 is probably going to be about enough to get a good variety that matches their philosophy of how you want to be governed under family law. And we can talk insurance law, banking law, and the 9 yards. Everybody wants to be regulated differently. As long as it's not causing a negative externality, it doesn't get shifted up to the representative level where it governs everybody with that set of regulations. If you're regulated properly, you can choose your regulatory agency. Education, for example. I get to pick my school board, my neighbor gets to pick their school board, guy down the street picks their school board, and they govern them. Just like you can move to a different city and choose a different school board right now. But what if you got to win every vote you did without having to move? Plus, because it's government and a monopoly, they have to go secular. What if you want religion involved in your child's education? Simple as that. Okay. Government's monopoly control often yields low experimentations or examples to compare. You can compare the different cities, you can compare the states, but it's hard to compare when there's not a competition without having to move. If people freely got to choose without having to move different regulatory agencies, that's when things are really going to change. The full state is hard to make a change. And a lot of times there's going to be people fighting that change. You might want it, they might want what they want. Just allow that to happen by splitting it up. If you split it up into two, liberals and conservatives, it at least gives you two. Gives you something to go on. But what if you got to do 12? Conservatives split up between 2 or 3. Liberals split up between 2 or 3. Other ones in the middle got 2 or 3. That's 9, 10 right there. There's other ones going to be a lot more libertarian, a lot more Green Party. I know we're talking family law right now, but you see where I'm going here. Okay, skills and time for elected leadership. Do they really have the time to govern and learn how to govern when they are spending half their time trying to get elected? Spending half their time campaigning. Spending half their time on the phone asking for money. When somebody's asking for money and they get tired of asking for money, how easy is it for a politician to say, okay, what do you want? You want this policy? You want a contract? You want something? You want an extra, you throw it $10,000 my way. It doesn't even have to be overt. It can just be inadvertent. But people start getting tired of asking for money. Politicians get tired of asking for money. And they get the inkling saying, if I go change it to this policy, money's going to roll in. Did their vote get bought? They don't think so. Maybe they did think so. There's a lot of gray area there. But you have a lot of time on the phone campaigning. Okay, let's go. The winner of a triathlon infrequently would place in an individual event. So if you're out there doing track and field, you're on a triathlon, if you're doing the hurdles, very rarely will somebody who's practicing to be a triathlon they're not able to compete with somebody who's focusing just on the hurdles or just on the high jump or just on that 100-yard dash. Same thing with a politician. Somebody who's really concentrating on prison policy. Are they really the best people to talk about tax policy, family law, police policy? A politician is in control of all of that right now. Let's go to the next slide before I get too far into this. Meaning one does not have the time to master any one of them, much less all of them. Let's look at a few areas of that politicians are currently over. Whether you're talking about mayor, governor, the president, or legislative branch, congressmen, U.S. senators, state senators for the state delegates, city council. They're over welfare. They're over family law. They're over police policies. They're over the courts. They make law dealing with courts. We really need people who are concentrating 100% of their time on the best laws governing courts. They have to go to the letter of the law when they're dealing with courts. They have to regulate, but to the very letter of the law. by people who don't even know what courts are hardly. They're spending their time campaigning. They're spending their time talking about education or banking or insurance or food regulations. They're spending their time on environmental controls and land use and military and foreign policy and roads and labor law and prisons and courts. Oh, we got back to courts. What if they spent one day every month on one of these subjects? Half the days throughout that they're campaigning half the days. You might get around to each one of these subjects once every other month at the most. Concentrate on courts once every other month for a couple hours. Maybe. So you see the need and the reasoning behind why we need to split up government power. If I haven't said so, and this is the first video you're seeing, we take all government power, top level elected leadership, elected representative leadership, per sector. So we have 5 in the charity system because we get rid of welfare. 5 in the foreign protection system. We get rid of what we currently have. We split up the power between diplomats and commander-in-chief, the military, the funding mechanism for the military because we're going to a free enterprise system, and a checks and balance system for the military. 5 in the violent crime system, the courts, the police, the authorization sector, that's a checks and balance sector, the prisons and the like. We got some for the healthcare and financial systems. So we got insurance, food, education. Education is going to have a very free enterprise, school choice direction. We have a lot to go over on that. It's another video. Manufacturing, human resources and sales, identity, dealing with citizenship and dealing with ownership. Environmental laws, work safety, transportation, media and communications, and land and water. So you see why we need to split this stuff up. So politicians can focus all their energy. Let's say you have somebody who's been in the prison industry for all their life, not as a prisoner, as a guard, as a warrant, as a somebody who deals with the prisons. They want to run for office, and let's say they get elected. They don't have anything. They don't know anything about land and water use. They don't know anything about environmental policy. They're spending all their time on prisons. That's a great thing. Let them just be in charge of the prisons. Top level elected leadership, just in charge of the prisons. Other ones just in charge of the court systems. A lawyer gets elected, who's been a judge, and they're in the system for 20, 30 years. They're 50, 55 years old now, and they have a lot of ideas how to change it and make it better. They've been in the system. Why have them worry about military and foreign policy? They know the courts. They know they don't need to be in the charity system. They don't need to be in the family law. They don't need to be in transportation. They don't need to be in media and communication. They don't need to be about land use or labor law. They concentrate on the courts. So that's my reasoning behind this. Okay. Half the time they're campaigning. Current politicians are campaigning. We're not going to have hardly any campaigning in my system. Yes, there'll be a public relations system for every CRA. If you don't know what a CRA is, look at those videos. We're kind of explained it already, but the reasoning behind this is they're concentrating on doing their best job. They have a public relation team, no doubt about it, to try to recruit people in, draw people into their CRA. But what's going to mostly draw people in is doing the best job. Their rating system's going to give high quality information about that, and people are going to see it. They're not going to have to be advertised to. There might be a little bit, good public relations team, but that's not going to be the big thing. So we're going to get rid of the politicians just doing slogans, not having a lot of specifics on their website, and people don't really know what they're doing when they're voting, because look after 15, 20 months of campaigning for president, and over half the people don't have a clue of the policies of the 2 different main candidates. How many people did not know what Hillary or Trump stood for in many of the main categories? You listen to man on the street interviews, and a lot of people did not even have a clue what their policies were. You look on their website, very, very, just a couple little slogans, not in depth. Anyway, let's keep on going. The CRA is going to go way in depth. They're going to have a track record. They're going to have a mission statement per sector. You're going to know what they stand for a lot better than the current system. How many days a month can a politician concentrate on each area of law? We already kind of went over that. Government monopoly control creates greater political animosity. When you have a monopoly controlling everybody, your school board, you send your child to school, you have a very vested interest in making sure they do it in the way you want it done. Most people lose. Over 90% of the people lose because they want some type of religion inside of their child's education program, inside their school. Some just a little bit, some a lot. Not everybody has to go into deep. Every subject has significant religion in it. Some want it. Some just want it, just a mild amount. The Bible read here and there, or Bible messages brought in to some degree. Everybody has a different degree. But a vast majority, well over 75-80%, want some religion. Right now they all lose, except for the 10 or 20%. They get what they want in the secular environment. Okay. There's more at stake when the electoral winner represents and controls all the people. I talked about that in education. Same thing with environmental law. Same thing with all the other regulations and all the different subjects. Police is a huge one. The people who win and get to control police policy. There's a lot of people have a lot of animus towards police. We shouldn't have that. If we went to my system of private police, people had to actually write a contract and hire a police company. Obviously, they're going to try to hire one that are not thugs. Now, I don't think our police are thugs right now, but a lot of people do think that they're thugs. People in the inner city, a lot of times they're afraid of the cops. Well, if they get to hire the ones that they want to hire, they're not going to hire the ones that think are thugs. It's going to reduce down that animosity. I can go through all the different categories, and you're going to see how important it is to have your choice, that you win because you selected them. Okay. And it's not going to be a monopoly winner. You're governed by the CRA that you pick per sector, per level of government. Okay, Indian elections as we know them. We're not going to have that big election in every 4 years in November for president. All-encompassing news. The news is on that 50% of the time, if not more, depending on which news you look at. That's all they're talking about because it's all-encompassing. We're going to get rid of that to a large degree. You can switch what CRA you want at will, and that's going to change representation. If you don't like the way one person's acting or the representatives, you don't like what they're saying, simply switch to a different CRA. Now, one CRA loses support, your new CRA gains support. They gain funding, they gain respect, they gain your trust, whether you're dealing with the RA, rating agency, or the CRA. Let's go on. Switching representation from electing individuals to selecting governing agencies. So we just did that. Every citizen selects their governing agency. About six of the 30 sectors are going to have primary authority at the representative level. The commander-in-chief has to be at the representative level. We can only have one commander-in-chief. There has to be a top guy. And we're speaking with one voice. The diplomats speaking with one voice. The definition of violent crime. Some of the checks and balance systems to authorize the police or authorize military power. Those need primary authority at the representative level. 6 of them. 24, primary authority at the CRA level. The CRA governs only their members. The members elect the CRA leadership inside, executive, legislative, and judicial. All those are elected. Now, judicial might be appointed in some CRAs if you want to, but there'll be systems for that. But you'll see how that is going to be a lot better because people select their governing agencies. And they have to live with that governing agency. They have to be lived under that governance. So yes, they send representatives up, A lot of times people will vote for people like Bernie Sanders or Ted Cruz. Well, Bernie Sanders' policies to some people are oppressive. To other people, it's great. Well, people have to live under their system that they choose. And everybody else can live under the system they choose. If it's doing a bad job, they're going to want to move. People who live under Bernie Sanders CRAs, either they're going to love it or they're going to move. People who live under Ted Cruz CRAs, they're going to either love it or move to a different CRA. Not move physically, geographically. They're going to move to a different CRA. Whether you're a libertarian, conservative, liberal, Green Party, this is not about what I am. I will pick my CRAs. Obviously, you probably see that I'm very free enterprise friendly. Anyway, let's keep on going. And that governing agency governs its members and only their members. Unless it moves up to the representative body. And it can only move up if it's in significant negative externalities. You're not going to have that big of a problem because the rating system is going to inform everybody from a lot of different perspectives. It's going to be highly important that they get that information. If a law needs to be consistent across the board, maybe 10 to 20% of the time, then it goes to the representative level. And most of that is going to still be implemented by the individual CRAs. So, and that's mainly just to deal with negative externalities. Okay. And on the most part, we just talked about that. Representatives. Let's talk about representatives. I know we've been talking about that, but current congressmen should not be called representatives. What needs to be represented? I'm a citizen. My interests and my opinions need to be represented. My neighbor, let's say he's very socialist. Another neighbor, let's say he's very libertarian. Another one's middle of the road. Another one is anti-war. Another one is pro-war. How can one person represent 700,000, 800,000 people for Congress? 100,000 people for House of Delegates. 200,000 people for State Senate. 200,000 people for the city of Chesapeake. How can one person represent everybody? It's just not possible. You wouldn't have one lawyer represent more than one person in a court case unless they agree to it. Their interests are not conflicting. But if you have two defendants, each one has a separate lawyer because there's always going to be a conflict between the two. The lawyer has to put their client's best interest. A lawyer is a representative of that defendant. So if you have two defendants, you have two lawyers. Because there's going to be a time in that trial where that representative lawyer is going to have to either represent the wife or the husband, one business partner or another business partner. If there's two people being charged for one thing, they both need representation from a lawyer separately because they both have their own interest, both have their own opinions. And that is what needs to be represented. Very rarely will you have one lawyer representing more than one defendant at a time. And you might have one lawyer representing a whole bunch of plaintiffs, suing a company that might have wronged all 100 of them, 200 of them, or whatever, class action suit or whatever. But we're talking about defendants. Okay. Every district has thousands of libertarians, liberals, socialists, the left, Democrats, the right, Republicans, anarchists, Green Party, conservatives. There's a lot of people out there. You cannot represent them all. So they should not be called a representative. One politician is not likely going to agree with all your issues. Even though I might like Ted Cruz, somebody else might like Bernie Sanders. Ted Cruz doesn't agree with me on probably 50% of the issues. Some of the issues he might agree with me on 70%. Other issues he might agree with me on 30%. Other issues not much at all. Bernie Sanders might agree with me on a few issues. But on those issues, did he agree with me on labor law? Did he agree with me on banking policy or insurance policy? And then to what degree in that one sector? So you see that even if you get the person you want, They're not going to represent you in all the areas. I might love the way my representative is taking care of welfare, but not family law. I might like how he's taking care of food policy, restaurant safety food policy, but hate how he's taking care of banking. But I voted for him because the other guy was worse on more issues. How many people will vote for the lesser of two evils? I disagree with this guy 50% of the time, and that guy 70% of the time, so I'm going to vote for the guy that I disagree with 50% of the time. It happens all the time. People vote candidate A, candidate B. Boy, if there was a none of the above that mattered, a lot of people would vote for none of the above. But because that's the only way you vote, they have to pick which one would do less harm. Which one you might not like what he's doing with environmental policy, but you love what he's doing with roads. So, okay, going over the basics of CRAs. So we talked about a lot of the reasonings behind a lot of these. Let's really get into the reasons why we do what we do with the CRAs. CRAs are the base of all my reforms. All the Haley 2024 reforms. I don't like to say mine because this is the movement. I want to identify it as the movement's reforms. Okay, you see a little bit of the hierarchy here. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen. It's not meant for you to read all this right now. Look at my website to take a really good look at this. But I'll go over the different sectors real quick in a minute. I already went over that, but we're probably going to hit another screen with that. But you have the sector board level. You have the parent sector board, and then you have CRAs. You got 3 levels. CRAs is the base of all of it. The sector board can only be made up of representatives from the CRAs. The rating system, they're like the sector board, they're representative level. They're only made up of representatives of the RAs. Then the parent sector board, they're the RAs, and there's the RA side, rating system side, and a sector board side, or CRA sector board side. So you have that going on there. And the parent sector board is made up of representatives on both sides, rating system, CRA side. But they're representatives of the CRAs, all of them, proportionally. Very important to use the word proportional here. Okay, and you see how the members make up, the RA members make up the CRA. CRAs only govern their members, and members vote for the leadership of the CRA. So you get like-minded people grouped together first, and then you do it. So just trying to give you the reasoning behind a lot of this. I think I went over this, but here's a 30. Go on my website, and I don't want to sit there and repeat all 30 again. It takes some time. But 5 in the charity system, 5 in the foreign protection system, federal level. That's federal level. Everything else is state level, original authority. 5 in the violent crime mitigation system, then 15 others dealing with healthcare, financial, insurance, food, education, manufacturing, labor law, citizenship, ownership, environmental, work safety, transportation, and the like. Okay, it's so important that you understand that each one of these are full governmental units. They have the legislative branch, they have the executive branch, and they have the judicial branch, each CRA. Now, I know we have some small towns with 8,000 to 10,000 people in it, maybe even some with smaller. Okay, they're going to group together with the neighboring cities, and they're going to be borrowing and sharing some personnel. They're going to be able to do that. It's not going to be so hard. Obviously, big cities like New York, that's millions of people. Even cities as small as 200,000 people like Chesapeake, Virginia, they should have enough people to really make the system work. But a lot of small towns are going to have to group together. You can have officially these per small town, but there's going to be ways to do that and be efficient. You're going to group together with other ones. There's going to be a CRA body that says for localities, we specialize in this. We're going to come in, and this is our basic model for a local government, small town, and you're going to group a lot of cities together or small towns together and have the productivity and efficiencies of a bigger grouping. So it can be done. I mean, when you have free enterprise and a lot of different systems and not a lot of restrictions on how they go about getting it done, you can get it done. Okay. Here's a screen. I'm not sure if I showed you yet, but you have a sector. Let's say banking sector. Two sides to it: CRA side and the rating system side. Under the CRA side, you have roughly a dozen different competitive regulatory agencies. Each one its own governmental unit. Each one. They send representatives to the sector board, and that's a full governmental unit too, only dealing with negative externalities. Again, we talked about the 6 that have original authority at the sector board level, representative sector board level, and then other ones have all the other ones have original authority at the CRA level, so they're only governing their members and very little going up to the representative level. And when it goes up, they work back through the CRAs saying these have to be consistent across the board. But each sector is so different. I'm not going to get into all that right now. And plus, I'm not the one making all those choices. All the representatives are going to make those choices. This is just the structure. My purpose is to create the overall structure, the legal structure to do this. And obviously it's going to be a constitutional amendment. I have a constitutional amendment on my page that, yes, it probably needs to be improved. Yes, a lot of people are going to give their opinions and problems with it. I agree. There's problems with it. No doubt about it. We're going to have to put more clauses in there. We're going to have to do this. I'm doing the best I can with what I have going with it now. I'm always making adjustments when I think of new ideas, new inconsistencies, new problems. We put another clause, but I don't want the Constitution to be that big. I want it to be a simple framework and let people work it out within the framework. So important to we split the 30 sectors up. I talked about that, but this is a reasoning thing. We need elected leaders or people dealing with that one subject to concentrate on their sector alone. And also the voters or selectors. Instead of voters, let's call them selectors. And they vote within their membership, within their CRA, but we're going to call them selectors instead of voters or electing. They're going to select. Okay. They're going to concentrate their efforts on that one sector. So you might be liberal in prison policy, but conservative in financial policy. There's a lot of different things you can do like that. I mean, education policy, you want this way, where a lot of liberals like it, and on the police, you want it this way, the way conservatives want it. A lot of different variety there, and you're going to be able to do that. So you concentrate your efforts, and then you're going to get long-time police officers running for office for the police. You're going to get long-time lawyers and judges running for elected officials in the courts. You're going to get long-time people dealing with labor law to run for office to deal with labor law. You're going to get people with long-time and a lot of experience helping the poor to go over the charities or the CDAs or the AOs, accessible organizations. If you don't know some of these terms, they're on my page. There is a CRA sector board and a rating system per sector. I didn't really get into the reasoning for this. The rating systems to give high quality information. The people have a lot of different ways they think about what the end game is, the outcome. What outcome do you want to see? Obviously, there's a lot of people who don't like income inequality. Well, what's their end game? Well, they want more equal income. Well, some people don't think that's a problem, and it shouldn't be a problem, but a lot of people think it is. Different people are gonna rate that kind of stuff differently. Insurance policies. Some people are gonna want a lot more policies, so the little man, the policyholder, always wins. Other people might want where the insurance company always wins. Well, guess what? They're going to have to get to a nice medium where you give protections on both sides. Because if you give too much protection to the person that has an insurance policy that they win and fraud happens, the insurance company is not going to be able to make any money. But if you give the insurance company so much power and so many protections that they never have to do a payout, well, nobody wants to go buy a policy from them because they're not getting insurance. They're not going to get a payout if the bad thing happens that they're insuring against. Life insurance, car insurance, house insurance, whatever. They want to get a payoff if the bad thing happens. It's going to force a balance. That's why it's competitive. Right now, a monopoly has the problem of the insurance company sees the regulations and they play every single game they can for their benefit. And why shouldn't they, to some degree? The policyholders, they see the regulations, and the lawyers representing the plaintiff, representing the person who, the policyholder, they know every single regulation, and they're going to try to get that insurance company for all they're worth. And why shouldn't they? It's what's in their best interest. We don't want people playing games. Competition helps the game playing stop. Okay, so it's the monopoly that's causing a lot of the problems. The competitive nature of these regulatory bodies and getting people to be able to pick and choose which one to go with, it's going to be ideal for getting rid of the issues surrounding monopoly. Okay, there are a dozen CRAs per sector board. It's just the simple structure of the system. We just talked about that. Dozen rating agencies. We talked about why different people want to group together. The people who believe in global warming, they're going to rate certain things significantly different than people who are skeptical of the alarmist, catastrophic ending of global warming. They're going to rate things differently. Some people are going to look at the benefits of fossil fuels and the energy it has and see how much good it is doing. Other people are just going to see that carbon's going in the air, it's bad. They're going to rate differently. There's no doubt about it. The end point is going to be definitely different. You listen to different people that are alarmist on global warming, and you listen to the other side, and you see that they want different endpoints, not just a different method of getting there. They don't want the same endpoint. And they have different methods to get to the endpoint that they want. Okay, let's keep on going. About 10 more slides or so. The three levels of federal, state, and local governments each have their distinct full CRA structure. Very important to know. All levels of government is not going to have all the same amount of control. Obviously, the federal government for the military is going to be 95% to the federal level, 10% for the state and local. I don't know what they're going to give the state and local. We got the National Guard and stuff like that, so maybe they'll give them some of those. Recruiting and different things like that. But almost everybody else is going to have control in the other sectors. The other sectors are going to have primary authority at the state level. And the state level should give a lot of authority down to the local level when it can. So every sector is so different. I could go through every one of the sectors and say, hey, 80% should be at the federal, 10% should be at the local, 10% should be at the state. Other sectors should be 80% at the state, 10 and 10 at the local and federal. Other ones should be 80% at the local, 10 and 10 on the state and federal. Every sector is so different. But it's not my choice. When I create the structure, the parent sector boards, different systems will go into place to find out who gets what authority. Mostly the states are going to have to join together, all 50 states, representatives within the sector boards, the parent sector board of all 50 states, and really make those choices per sector. So there's a lot to get into on that. That's down the line, but there's already thought about that and who does it. Original authority at 25 sectors at the state level, 5 sectors, foreign policy at the federal level. That's where it's at. So it's already decided who makes that decision and how that decision is being made. They just have to make it. I'm not the one making that. I'm doing the overall framework here. Every person in business must become a member of a CRA and RA in all 30 sectors. Some sectors you're not going to have too much. If you don't run an insurance company, you're not going to be too concerned about the insurance regulatory agencies. Only insurance companies are going to have to deal with them, but you still have to belong, just for representative purposes, just for the legal purposes, just for this framework to work. Some people, but everybody has to hire a police law enforcement contract, sign a law enforcement contract. If you have a house, a little bit more. A business has to have a law enforcement contract. Everybody does. There's ways to do law enforcement where they have a mandate to have high cooperation. You still have patrol cars protecting everybody. The roads are going to have to hire law enforcement contracts. There's a lot of structure here, and I take care of every issue. Well, the framework does. The framework puts the responsibility somewhere, to some representative body, to some CRA, or at the representative level. But CRAs are still representative of their members, but they're member representatives. Because you're elected by your members, you're a representative of your members. Now, you only control your members, unless it gets pushed up to the next level, where they control everybody over all 12 sectors or so. Okay. Each CRA governs its members. Very important to know, they only govern their members. Obviously, the Commander-in-Chief governs the whole officer corps. They select a leader. And by the way, every leader is selected by the representatives that send up to that sector board level. So the Commander-in-Chief is elected by all the representatives proportionally sent up to the sector board level. So you pick your CRA for Commander-in-Chief. How do you want your Commander-in-Chief to look like? If you're conservative or liberal, what do you value in a Commander-in-Chief? If you want them to have a strong authorization of force and really go in there and kick butt, or do you want them to be a lot more restrained? Two different philosophies of how to be a Commander-in-Chief. There's a lot of factors involved in that. I just picked one off the top of my head. Anyway, so you have 12 different ones giving a full list of their philosophy of how a Commander-in-Chief should operate. They all send officers to the whole system for the whole military, proportional to their membership. So if you have 10% of the citizens of the country, that Commander-in-Chief CRA sends 10% of the officer corps, has to fund that. They get their funding from the funding mechanism that's explained in that video. And you look at it on my webpage. So they'll send 10%, but then all representatives, all officers vote for that top officer. So we don't have all the citizens voting, but everybody votes for their CRA, then proportional, they can go up. Now your CRA can say, we're going to have our citizens vote individually for the top officer. You can do that in a CRA, and some CRAs might do that. Some CRAs are going to say, rely on us. We're gonna really pick the best Commander-in-Chief. These are our standards, and people are going to trust them and do that. Other ones, they're going to be able to do it on their, send it down to the citizens, their members, and let the members pick, and then use that to go up to the voting for the top Commander-in-Chief. I say the Commander-in-Chief, that's just one sector. The diplomats, the military, the police, that's going to be the same thing for a police chief or a sheriff or whatever. The leader of the police. Okay, let's keep on going. 80% of the governance will occur in each entity's selected CRA. So, it's important to know it's hard for definitional purposes whether it's 10, 20, 30% was going to be happening in this representative sector board level versus a CRA. I don't know yet. We're going to see what really needs to go up to the next level and only send up very few things. You need a 70% vote to get there. So it's not going to be a lot. Most people are going to think they can handle it at the CRA level, and they can. Their rating system is going to ensure that people have good, high quality information from a lot of different perspectives, and they're going to put their trust in different CRAs depending on their ratings. Okay, 20% of governance will occur by representative control, so we just went over that. And that 20%, it's a fluctuating number. I don't know. Different sectors are going to be different amounts. And obviously the 6 sectors are going to have 100% at the representative level because it has original authority. Now, just because it has original authority at the sector board level, the representative sector board level, doesn't mean they can't put a lot of responsibilities onto each of the CRAs. And they probably will. It might be best if the top commander-in-chief and the representative level says, okay, you're an officer corps, you supply 8%, you govern those officers and deal with this military corporation that over in the Pacific or in the Atlantic or wherever, or you take care of these boats. They're still have to have major cooperation of everybody. I don't know how it's going to work. My job is to create a good framework for everything to work good. And the representatives, the CRAs, they're going to battle it out, verbally battle it out to decide whether it goes up to the next level. And the court system has to decide whether it's a negative externality worthy of going to the next level anyway. And you have to try to take care of it in the rating system by putting a rating floor. So before it goes to the representative level, you have to have 70% of the rating agency that says, this is a problem, we cannot take care of it with the rating floor. You have to put the rating floor up there, jack it up some. A court system's going to say, that's still not good enough. The rating system's going to, with a 70% vote, is going to say, send it over to the CRA side. Let them regulate this very narrow set of regulations to make it across the board consistent. So you see how hard it is to get to a representative control. Very important to know that. Okay. I'm not going to go over it, but you see all the different sectors there, how we split that up. Charities, the funding mechanism for charities, the caseworkers, the family law, the religion. I mean, we never regulate religion. That's there to fight for religious liberty, for some organizational purposes and stuff. The diplomats, the commander-in-chief, the military corporations, the military capability system, and military authorization. You split this up because they have very distinct responsibilities and authorities. Very distinct, different ideas of what needs to happen, or they have different things. Okay, military capability system, that's a funding mechanism. So that's what's so important about that. The commander-in-chief, they have original authority to kick butt on U.S. soil, but if you're going to have any type of force outside of American soil, you have to go through the DFP. And again, 70% vote to do that. Now, hopefully they're going to vote to have the commander-in-chief have some original authority or give him authority to handle some issues overseas on an ongoing basis. But they're going to be able to pull that back if he goes out of control, if he starts doing things unwarrantedly. Okay, let's keep on going. You see the 5 in the violent crime system. You got the courts, the police, the prisons, and the like. Again, going very much into the free enterprise system on police, on the courts, and on prisons. There's no reason we can't have free enterprise courts. People, well, it's like, what? How are you going to do that? Why can't you? You put high standards. You make sure they hit high standards. The judges have to get approved by the law enforcement authorization. So they're going to have a badge to be a police officer, a badge to be a judge, a badge to be a DA. You have to have a badge. You have to get that issued by a representative body. To get that issued, you have to go through training, certified, degrees, experience, be monitored, have internal affairs, have all these things, have a good rating, personal rating. They're going to have all these checks and balances in the system. And the rating system is going to make sure a lot of things go well. There's so many checks and balances within the system. Okay, you see the other ones. I'm not going to read them all off again. I kind of did before, and just going back over these. And okay, pretty much done with this. Please consider a donation. The reasoning behind that, I'm doing this all on my own right now. I sure could use a social media person. I could use an editor. I can use somebody who really knows how to write to get my stuff out there in a more legible and better writing style than what I can do right now. I want somebody who really knows how to do social media to get it out there. I need people to really, it's expensive to do. You try to advertise on Facebook, it's expensive. Google ads, I don't do a lot of it right now because I just don't have the money for it. I'm using my own money to do what I'm doing right now. So if you want to do a donation, it will be put to good work. I'm using my own money now, so I'm using it efficiently. If I get money in, a social media person, I'm sorry, somebody to help me edit, somebody to help me monitor what I'm doing and organize, I'll use the money well. I'm spending all my own money now, so you know I'm using it well. And mostly I'll be using my money still, even if I get donations in. And I would love if I start getting enough donations in to get out of my full-time job right now and go full force with this, because I believe in these ideas so strongly. I spend a lot of my weekends, spending a lot of my own money dealing with some of this stuff because I believe in this issue and how much better this is than the current system. So I want to change the foundations of government. So everything's so easy to find on my website. And until the next video.